Okay, first allow me to thank Professor Klaus-Dieter Matthies for kindly inviting me to join this event. I also thank the sponsor of this wonderful event, Chandra Foundation. And my topic is, as suggested by title, is observation of Ratnākaraśānti's Buddha nature. So basically we will read rather closely 6 verses, his summarizing verses of one section of his Prajñāpāramitopadeśa. We shall read closely the summarizing verses Yathavat Pavikatayam Chindamai Prajñā section of Ratnākaraśānti's Prajñāpāramitopadeśa by piecing together the prose rephrased by the verses and drawing related passages from Chinese and Tibetan sources, which are respectively much earlier and slightly later than Ratnākaraśānti. We shall demonstrate that for Ratnākaraśānti, the cognition only is in essence self-cognition only, and the Buddha nature is in essence the quintessence of self-cognition, the luminosity. We shall have a digression on the Tattva verse attributed to the Mahayana Pitharma Sutra to show a possible variant reading of the first pada as reflected in Paramartha's Chinese translation of the Mahayana Sangraha and also Mahayana Sangraha Bhashya, and highlight the doctrinal nuance of this single reading. Finally, we shall, taking our observation as an example, underscore the significance of the late Madhyamika texts to Buddhist studies. We start from the very beginning. Prakasho his patam rupam tadyugat aparukshata vedyata sa eva yadyugat yasachitena. Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, that's a good way. Okay. Yadyugat yasachitena tasya ved. So I read my translation. Exactly, luminosity is a clear form. By its connection with that, i.e. the luminosity, there is manifestation of the form, aparukshata, and it is precisely the being of knowing, because with which one cognizes, by that one knows. What follows is a passage drawn from this section, and I would like to escape it for a moment and jump to my observation. If we are interested in certain point, we can come back and we can return during discussion time. The argumentation starts on phenomenological level and moves to epistemological domain. The purpose is to establish the self-cognition and further the self-cognition only. The manifestation of alien form, rupa, depends on the luminosity, more precisely, depends on a correlation between them, which is defined as a force 2-in-1 interplay, tathāgamya, of the luminosity and the image. To put in question, prakasha plus akara, then we have aparukshata, and it's equated to spatam rupam. Actually, I understand it's as a very famous Heart Sutra expression, rupam shunyata. Interplay is in reality an interaction among the 3 natures as reflected in the different ways. The passage concerned appears below. Ratnākaraśānti terms the luminosity in PPU. It could be ultimately the essence of being shining force, prakasha manada. This is the first synonym used by him for prakasha, which we shall propose to be a possible Sanskrit equivalent just from doctrinal point of view of the essence of perception, 觉性, alias the original perception, the essence of knowing, 解性, attested in the 大乘起信论 and related texts. Thus, nothing but the perfect nature. So, prakasha manata, it seems to me, means the panishpana svabhava for Ratnākaraśānti. Or a second, a manifestation, prakyana, the cognition which projects false images, thus a dependent nature. Or the third alternative, or the projection, pratibhasana, image, consists of dichotomies, the foremost of which is a pair of the apprehended and the apprehending. Thus, it is the imagined nature. The former among the three finds its way in the later, but not the other way round. The essence of being shining forth is ultimately and purely pure, in the sense of real. Also, the projection is purely impure and unreal. They interact in the form of the manifestation, which can be either considered a container, a stage of the play. We call it the locative interpretation. We will return to this point at the very end, as we would like to put all that which creates the play. The instrumental interpretation, as we shall suggest, a point we shall revisit at the end. The interplay presented in PPU is not unprecedented. It is basically a rephrasing of Stiramati's description of the three natures in the Madhyanta Vipaka Tika, Evam Aputparikalpe Trayaha Svabhavaha Samgrahitaha. In such a way, the three natures can be subsumed under the imagination of the unreal. The shift to epistemological domain is presented in the second half of the verse. The identification of a parokshata with vedyata, a metrical replacement of some vedyata in the prose the verse recapitulates, is based on the argumentation that if one cognizes, one should know one cognizes. This is basically my understanding of the first verse. Anticipating a possible refutation, Ratnākaraśānti continues by quoting the Sandinirmochana Sutra as a scriptural authority. Anguya grasita ravat svagraho va varyate tiyam na svadakyatir iti uttam Sandinirmochane sputam. It is clearly elucidated in the Sandinirmochana Sutra. The self-seizing of the mind is negated, just like that of the fingertip and the sword blade is negated. The self-manifestation of the mind, however, is not. And we have a passage quoted from Sandinirmochana Sutra, and together with these interpretations, we shall skip this passage. And again, we have yet another passage quoted from a certain Prajñāpāramita text, also related to this topic, but again, we have to skip it. We jump to the remark, the contrast illustrated in the Sandinirmochana Sutra between the self-manifestation and self-seasoning is to show the spontaneity of the cognitional event. The indication is that the mind is void of the dichotomy and alien action which presupposes dichotomy. And another equation can be extracted from the quotations, prakasha plus pratibimba, and we have chitta, prakyana, basically as a bhuta parikalpa or paratantra svabhava. The next verse is a conclusion and further extension. Ataha sita svasamvetihi ataha sa puti lakshanam tatatamyam cha prakashena yukat dhimatrata tataha. We have ataha, two ataha and one tataha, so actually we have three conclusions here. Thus, self-cognition is established, and it follows that it is intrinsic feature of the mind, buddhi, lakshana. Furthermore, because it is intrinsically correlated with the luminosity, the mind only is established. And we have a passage closely related to this verse. It begins with, what is the reasoning for the proposition? So, we have to skip it for a moment. Our first conclusion is that a self-cognition is established. This is introduced by the first ataha. The second ataha leads the second conclusion. The self-cognition is the nature of the mind. This has been proved. Tataha, it follows that everything is cognition only. We may stop here, but in this context, it seems to be quite natural to go one step further to spell out what is indicated. The cognition only is in essence self-cognition only. Passingly, the descending degree of substantiality as observed above in the three synonyms of the luminosity seems to suggest a hierarchy of the cognition only, and this hierarchy is probably an equivalent to the levels of the cognition only recorded in Xuanzang and Kuiji's writings, and possibly also reflected in Orthodox Zhuonang text. The textual source of this particular verse is most likely Dharmakirti's Brahmana Vardika. The following stanza may have been used as a blueprint. This is a verse from the 3rd chapter, Prakashamanas tatatmyat svarupasya prakashakaha yatha prakasho pimataha tathadhihi atmavetini. Just as the luminosity, which is shining force because it is by nature luminosity, is accepted as illuminator of its own nature, the cognition dhihi is metaphorically designated the self-perceiver. The translation is basically based upon Manoratna Landing's commentary. We have also quoted the interpretation here. This is basically the 3rd verse. The fourth one, Sve rupe jnanam atyaksham alikeshu admasu pramaha dan hitva bhavaya anandam jnanam kameva kevanam. The essence of the mind, jnana, I know this is somehow special way to translate jnana. In its own nature, sve rupe is a direct perception that in the unreal natures, however, is an error. Having abandoned the unreal natures, let the essence of the mind, which is boundless and as pure as the sky, manifest. Then we have a nice interpretation of this verse. This verse shows the two orientations of the essence of the mind, jnana. It can either be a direct perception of its own nature, an unbiased self-perceiver, because it dwells in and pervades its soul own nature, the luminosity. The locative singular of sve rupe is taken as a pivyapaka, or it can be a misperception because it is involved in and saturated with diversified false natures, anikeshu admasu. And we know the referent is the many false images. The connotation of rupa, which we translate into nature, is a real locus, the perfect nature. The atman in locative plural, which we translate again into nature, denotes a superimposed and elusive support. The imagined, that's a type of imagined nature, the imagined nature. In other words, the correlation reflected in the former case is a real two-in-one, tatatmya. In the later case, it is a false one. The bifurcation poses a problem on the interpretation of final verb, bhavaya. We have ventured to try, instead of cultivate, as suggested in the dependent translation, let manifest, to highlight that the process of the cultivation is eventually a rediscovery of the real nature of the mind. One more equation can be gathered from above versified and prosaic sources. Jnana, which is basically prakasha rupa plus akara, then we have vijnana. And we know from Ratnākaraśānti's reading and reinterpretation of the Yukti Shastika verse 34 that he maintains a clear division between jnana and vijnana. This verse has brought us closer to the topic of our symposium. The fifth one, akshayaha chitta samtanaha prak akshine ya alayaha vijay sasrava dharmanam kshine tatuhu anasravaha. The mind continuum is indestructible that which is previously a storehouse of defilements, when the state of the impure factors has not been exhausted, becomes a pure dhatu when the state has been exhausted. This verse contains all the chief keywords of our discussion: citta, samdana, alaya, dhatu. The basic idea is that the mental continuum can be termed differently because of its different status. A store-mind holds impure factors, and a dhatu, which is by nature pure. One question arises for Ratnākaraśānti: does akshaya indicate that the mental continuum is a momentary continuation or an eternal shining force? Before answering this question, we would like to have an excursion which focuses on the dhatu verse. Though the Sanskrit text of the Mahayana Sangraha is lost, the dhatu verse is transmitted in 3 other treatises, the Tathāgatagarbha and Stiramati's 2 commentaries. One is Tathāgata-garbha, another one is Panchaskandaka Vibhāsha. The Sanskrit original of all 3 is available. The dhatu verse is quoted in the Tathāgatagarbha, and the Stiramati's Panchaskandaka Vibhāsha reads, Anadikaniko dhatuhu sarvatharma samashrayaha tasmin sati gatihi sarva nirvana tikamo picha. Stiramati's quotation in the Tathāgata-garbha reads, Anadikaniko dhatuhu sarvatharma, basically the same. The only variant is the particle at the end, ja or va, both of which may convey the same meaning in this context. Takasaki with ja translates, the essence that exists since beginningless time is the foundation of all the elements. Owing to its existence, all phenomenal life as well as the acquisition of nirvana exists. With va, the second half may be interpreted as, owing to its existence, all phenomenal life, all the acquisition of nirvana exists. Among all the Chinese and the Tibetan translations of the dhatu verse, Paramartha's Chinese translation is unique. It is the only version which suggests rather convincingly a meaningful vibrant reading. Paramartha's version, as attested in his translation of the Mahayana Sangraha Pasha, reads, 此界无始时，一切法依止，若有诸道有，即有得涅槃. Immediately noticeable is the pronoun this at the very beginning. It is a single reading, not attested in any other translation known to us. As to be shown below, the reading is doctrinally significant. Paleographically speaking, it is also explainable. The initial a and sa, either of them cursively written, can become confusing with the other. The first pada for Paramartha, it seems, reads sa natikaliko tatuhu. Paramartha's version of the dhatu verse thus could be sa natikaliko tatuhu sarvatharma samashrayaha tasmin sati gatihi sarva nirvanatikamo viva. We have possibly yet another vibrant reading. We have put in the footnote, and yet another one. That, i.e., the alaya vijnana, is at once the beginningless dhatu, which is by nature knowing, and the common locus of all pure and impure dharmas. While the dhatu exists, all samsaric transmigration occur. While the dhatu exists, a realization of nirvana also comes forth. For Paramartha, the store-mind consists of 2 aspects. Ultimately, it is the pure dhatu by nature shining forth. It is also the support of pure and impure factors. If we believe that Mahayana Pitharma Sutra is a scriptural source of the Mahayana Sangraha as declared by Asanga at the end of this treatise, Paramartha's version of the dhatu verse may have already been attested in another version of the Mahayana Pitharma Sutra. These may need 2 further inquiries. How far away is Yogacara from Tathāgata-garbha from the very beginning? Is a later necessarily a late development of the former? we are still not in the position to answer the question raised above, because so far we have only covered the prakasha aspect of the mental continuum and its function as the ashraya of the impure dharmas. Its function as ashraya of the pure Buddha dharmas, the other half of the ashraya aspect, is yet to be addressed in the next and the last verse of Ratnākaraśānti's summary. Krishne vimuktikāyu so dharmakayu bidainaha ashrayo Buddha dharmanam nityam ravir ivarchisham. When the state of the contaminated factors has been exhausted, the mental continuum becomes the body of emancipation. It is also the dharma body of the protector. It is eternal base of all unshared characteristics of the Buddha, like the sun to the sunbeams. This is, of course, reminiscent of Vasubandhu's Trimshika, basically the last verse. As a support of the pure factors, the mental continuum becomes nidya, dhruva, and it is achintya. This means that we should further differentiate the ashraya aspect of the mental continuum, as Dobhoba does in his Ritringi Tenjiangso. When commenting on the Thadu verse, he explains, in the case of being the support of the pure factors, the supporter and the supported are identical. In the case of being the support of the impure factors, the supporter differs from the supported. The mental continuum serving as a support of the pure dharmas is nothing but the luminosity, which is eternal and unthinkable. The mental continuum as support of the impure dharmas is, however, a momentary continuity of the interplay of the luminosity and images, which is a dreamlike illusion. We have a passage for that before, quoted before. To put in the frame of Qixing Lun, the mental continuum is the second crude sign of the unawakened mind. For Ratnākaraśānti, as a support of the pure dharmas, the mental continuum is a pure Thadu, and it is eternal. This is a major reason, I think, that Ratnākaraśānti is counted as an orthodox Jonamba in Jonang tradition. Before closing the talk, I would like to further look at two passages, one from Qixing Lun, the other from Prajñāpāramitopadeśa, that are related to each other and relevant to observation of the mental continuum, which is Paratantra Svabhava and also the Abhuda Parikalpa. The first passage is from Qixing Lun. The alaya vijnana has 2 millions. It holds all factors. It gives rise to all factors. How are the two? The first denotes awakening, the second denotes unawakening. Then we piece together a passage from Prajñāpāramitopadeśa. Paratantra eva svabhavo abhuta parikalpa uchyate. Abhutam parikalpyate asmin. Abhutam va anena parikalpayati iti kirtava. It is precisely the dependent nature that is called the imagination of the unreal, Abhuta Parikalpa, which could either mean that in which the unreal is mentally created, or that by which the unreal is mentally created. We have formulated 2 equations here. So basically we want to have a one-to-one correspondence between these 2 paragraphs, a locative interpretation and instrumental interpretation. The Abhuta Parikalpa is nothing but this moment. The indication of the locative interpretation is that it can be either a stage or a cage or a garpa. In other words, it holds and maintains, and this points to the sustaining aspect of the mental continuum, which can be eternal or momentary, depends on which kind of support it serves as. If it's a support of the pure Dharma, it's eternal because it's in fact identical with the pure Dharmas. If otherwise, it's momentary. The instrumental interpretation seems to be purely conducive to the momentary aspect of the mind continuum. It simply generates and evolves. Our observation is bringing together Dharmakirti, Paramartha, Ratnākaraśānti, and Tathāgatagarbha. It shows at least the texts from the last period of Indian Buddhism provides new angle to revisit the classic primary literature produced both before and after them, and to reconsider the conclusions drawn in previous secondary literature. This is partially a reflection of the tendency of that period of time. Sorry, I haven't finished this part, because my impression is literature produced in this period of time seems to be basically subject-oriented. It's not like probably still commentaries, but it seems subject-oriented small treatises like those of Vajnana also Ratnākaraśānti and Ratnākirti seems to be the major production contribution of this period of time. That's my observation. And this is, of course, a reflection of the Prajñāpāramitopadeśa and Prajñāpāramitopadeśa of our Symposium, Tathāgata-garbha across Asia, which means much more than it literally means. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for this rich and fascinating material and for your good presentations. And I have one question, and one remark. Maybe I start with a remark.
Please.
And as you know, the Chunampas or Dotrapa, he said, you need a proper interpretation of the Yogacara system. And the way it is usually explained is expressive of Treta Yuga, so a degenerate form of Dharma. And one wonders, what is the proper interpretation of Yogacara? And when you look at the Taranata Shenton Nimpo, you get an idea of what that means. And that means, and as I pointed out also from my talk on Shanta and Sunam, it means to reduce the perfect nature to its unchangeable aspect. And that means, that the perfect in terms of being unmistaken or the non-conceptual wisdom cultivated is also part of the Nigandham. And deconstruct the parikalpita paratanta distinction, ontological distinction. And that's quite a departure from what you normally have in Yogacara. So my question is, do you really think, you can read this kind of interpretation into Ratnākaraśānti's Upadesha, or do you think this would be also a departure from the material?
Frankly, I think I don't quite get your point, but basically, I think because we talked, discussed a little bit about that previously, so my idea is actually, I think the point is, if I may rephrase your question, is whether you want to confirm that whether Ratnākaraśānti does emphasize the unchanged part of the perfect nature. And that, I think, I was trying to answer part of it by...
Does he exclude the changeable part of it? Does he really distinguish? Does he make a clear-cut distinction between the unchangeable part of the perfect changeable part and exclude it from the perfect nature? That's a crucial point.
Oh, yes. I don't think we have explicit expression about that, whether he excludes or...
That's also my impression.
But I think we can infer from his emphasis on the prakasha, matra, etc. And my understanding is, as I put at the very first of my presentation, is for him the so-called Vijñāpāramitopadeśa is nothing but prakasha, matra. This we find exactly the phrasing in his PPU, So, and of course, prakasha for him is eternal. It's unchanging. So, on that basis, I think we have a basis to claim that Ratnākaraśānti is indeed a Jonamba, orthodox Jonamba. And also, we can look at the quotation in those Jonan texts. The quote a particular verse by Ratnākaraśānti, and that verse does stress again on the unchanging aspect of perfect nature. I wrote, I discussed a little bit this part in my one paper published last year. Yes.
Well, usually the unchangeable part is just the absence of duality, so that never changes. But like the luminous part of the mind still continues in a continuum of moments and would not qualify as the basis of negation for a Jonanda.
I think here I get a clear idea about what you mean. For Ratnākaraśānti, I think the Paratantra basically is the interplay of the luminosity and image. It goes on, it fades perfectly, your definition. That's momentary continuity. But there is something eternal within this interplay.
Which is not only the absence of duality.
No, I don't think so. And I think he put it quite clear that this kind of interplay actually is false. In other words, this is an illusion. But ultimately, real is only one thing, that's prakasha. In that sense, I think he is a Jonamba, he is a Shendomba.
Okay.
Can you say more about Ratnākaraśānti's distinction between Vijñāna and Jnana?
Okay.
And the status of the akara? I took it to mean that Vijñāna Vijñāna has akara representations, but Jnana doesn't have?
Yes, we can read that part. Oh, here. First, we suggest we look at this verse. In this verse, he used only jnana. And my understanding is here, jnana refers to is a synonym of prakasha. And we can further look at this passage. It begins. It further asked, how does an unreal image manifest? Answer exactly with the unreal nature of the luminosity. Alikena eva prakashatma tavena. A further explanation. Vijnanam eva prakasha rupa tvat prakashamanam. This is one aspect of Vijnana because it has the nature of prakasha. It manifests, it illuminating. But on the other hand, due to this anadi brandi vasano paplava tvat, brandam, is also, but at the same time, it's mistaken. And in such a way, it prakyati, it manifests together with images. Images are false. And here, like swapnati vat, this is the basis of our remark on the interplay as an illusion, as something false. So basically for him, which the only ultimately real thing is prakasha, all these other things I think are elusive images.
Okay, and Jnana has no akara?
Jnana,
at all, or?
no. I don't remember that verse because his interpretation of Yukti Shastika, verse 34, is quite peculiar. I think Haru published a paper already in 2012, and recently James Apple reworked on that verse again. And I'm drafting a paper again on this verse, its reinterpretation, drawing other materials. And the basic idea is I think we can be sure that he does differentiate jnana and vijnana. Vijnana is an interplay of prakasha and akara, and the jnana is pure prakasha. That's my understanding of this part.
I really like the distinction between the locative and instrumental interpretation, and I saw a resonance with the locative with what I was trying to get at with the sentient beings within Buddha nature. So this as a Buddha nature as a locative, but this instrument, I'm interested to hear more about this instrumental kind of generative or creative function in light of maybe Ratnākaraśānti's tantric works or his. I see this, that samsara being propelled not simply by like karma and klesha, but by like chitta shakti or some type of prakasha's power that kind of generates and creates the world. So is there a connection here with his tantric works, or is it always just the generation of an illusion, or is there something kind of something else going on with this instrumental interpretation?
I haven't looked very carefully at his tantric works, so my starting point of this argument is actually, of course, as I showed in this presentation, two etymological interpretation of Abhuda Parikalpa. And we know that Paramartha, in his interpretation and plus translation of Mahayana Sangraha Bhashya, he lists 5 millions of dhatu. And from my point of view, those 5 different millions points to the locative interpretation. The many details, I have drafted another paper and presented in Hamburg. It's all about this dhatu verse. I think that's as evidence for the locative argumentation. And for the instrumental argumentation, I think what's in my mind basically is, in fact, Xuanzang's interpretation of this part. Dhatu for him is basically the cause. That befits very well the function of instrumental. Basically, that's my understanding. Xuanzang's translation and interpretation of dhatu in that particular point is very simple. It just simply say dhatu means cause, as if he has something like instrumental there. But Paramartha elaborated quite a lot. He put forth 5 millions, and in my view, at least 3 of them clearly point to the locative interpretation. I can send you draft, and you can further think about that to say whether that's supportable or not. Okay, thank you.